Hello, this is Rebecca Migdal, and welcome to Quick and Easy Illustrator Hacks for Beginners. I have made a couple of files available. If you're one of my students, you can download them on D2L. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I will be including a link in the comments where you can go to a place to download the files. But you don't have to download the files in order to follow along with this tutorial. You can also just do it on your own and just look at what we've got on screen and duplicate that. It's really a pretty simple project. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go over to Illustrator. So here we have the tutorial that I've created, which is basically just working with a heart image. But if you are interested in opening up this file, but you can't because you don't have the 2022 version of Illustrator, you can also import the PDF download, which I've made available. So I'm just going to show you really quickly how to do that. So when you have downloaded the PDF, what you want to do is you want to create a new document, which is 8.5 by 11 with 2 artboards. So you can see over here, print 8.5 by 11. It's going to be vertical orientation, and you want 2 artboards. So you create that. And then once you have that open, you're going to place the PDF file. So you go down here in the file menu to place, and then you select the PDF, and you're going to want to click Show Import Options when you've selected the PDF and hit Place. This import options allows you to select which page you want to put onto which artboard. So I want the first one to be page 1, so I'm going to click OK. And it's giving me a little error for some reason. And then I'm going to go and do the same thing. And again, I have Show Import Options selected. I hit Place, and this time I'm going to just move to page 2 and place that. Okay. So now I have the document ready to go. And that is basically identical to the document that I already created, except that it doesn't have the layers here. So if you want to go ahead and create another layer and then lock this layer and select the second layer, you can rename these, the worksheet and tracing layer, if you would like. It's always a good idea to name your layers. Okay. All right. Back over here. This is the Illustrator document that I made available. So if you downloaded that, you'll want to make sure that the working layer is hidden and that only the stencil and directions and trace layers are shown. Well, you can show this, but it shows it in full color. So you don't want that because you're going to be tracing over the top. One more thing that you want to do before we get started is just go ahead and go into your view menu and make sure that Smart Guides is checked, because you're going to be using your Smart Guides a lot to do this kind of Illustrator work. So I use my Smart Guides all the time. So now you're going to make sure your trace layer is selected here, and then you can hide your layers because we're not going to be doing anything else with those. And now go over to your tool palette and find the pen tool. And you just want to use the regular pen tool, not this one, which is the curvature tool. We're just going to be using your basic pen tool. And I'm just going to actually grab my magnifying glass and zoom in a little bit here so we can see better. All right, so now that you've got your pen tool, you can see those Smart Guides are really telling you where you are. And I want to start where it says anchor right there, that tiny little anchor. I'm going to click there, and then I'm going to move my pen tool up here, and I'm going to, lock it right onto that line. Well, you could make a different shaped heart if you want, but I'm trying to duplicate it exactly. I'm going to pull this out until I've got a nice curve that matches that curve, and then let go. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that we have the default right here in the tools palette, the swatches section of the tools palette, and it's got a fill, which is white, and a stroke, which is black. Well, we don't really want that fill to get in our way right now. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get rid of the fill and just leave the stroke. And I'm going to make that stroke visible or, activated on the top so that any changes that we make now to the swatches will be made to that stroke. We're going to change that later to a fill, but right now I'm going to show you how to make a heart with just 2 anchor points. So I'm going back down here to the bottom point now where it says anchor. I'm aligned with the anchor, and I'm just going to click right there. And now I want to go up and I want to play with this handle. So I'm going to select the white arrow, which is the direct selection tool, and I'm just going to pull this handle out until it matches that. And now I have, not 2, 3, and it's going to be a total of 4 anchors to create this heart. So as it says down here, 4 anchor points. So now I'm going to go ahead and double click on that stroke in the swatches palette, and I'm going to choose a red that I like, a nice bright red. And now that I've done that, I'm going to switch these just like that. So now it's the fill instead of the stroke. The next thing we want to do is, now we've got this selected, we're going to go over to the this is actually the scale tool, but over here to the rotate tool. And we're going to actually click on this bottom little corner here, and we're going to find the reflect tool, which looks like kind of like a butterfly. So I'm going to select the reflect tool, and then I'm going to go ahead and double click on it to open up now the reflect palette. And vertical is a little confusing because other applications have it switched the other way, but it calls it vertical when the axis is vertical. So that's the one you want to have because you want to flip it from one side to the other horizontally. So you pick vertical. And also the angle for that is 90 degrees. And you can click preview and it'll show you what you're doing. Anyway, I'm going to hit copy, and it's just going to make another one for me. All right, so now I'm going to hold down the shift key on my keyboard, and I'm going to just drag this over until it intersects with the other one. So it just said intersect. And just to make sure, I'm going to zoom in as far as I can and just check and make sure there's no little line. If these 2 anchor points aren't lined up properly, then there will be there might be a line in between. It looks like they're overlapping a little bit, but that's fine. What you want is you don't want a space in between them. So now that I've got those 2 halves overlapping, I'm going to drag with my selection tool, that's the black one, to select both of them. And then I'm going to go over to my Pathfinder palette, which is right here. If you don't have it available, you can find it up in Window, Pathfinder, right there. And then I'm going to just hit the Unite button, and that turns it into one shape. So the only thing you have to worry about now is that if you zoom in right down here, you'll see that because they were overlapped a little bit, it did create this little shape down here where the 2 anchor points are still there. And I'm going to just go ahead and delete the anchor points that I don't want. So I'm going to choose my delete anchor point tool, and I'm going to get rid of this one and this one and this one and that one until there's just one left. And now we have a nice pointy end. So now I'm going to just drag this to the left, but while I do that, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and the Option key. And you can see that creates a copy of it. And if you're working on a PC, then it'll be the Shift and the Alt key that you hold down. And now I'm going to make a copy of the heart using the scale tool. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to double click on that because it's showing. If it's not showing, you're going to have to make it visible by grabbing here on the corner. But mine is visible already, so I just have to double click on it. And now I'm going to use a uniform scale of 70%. And I'm going to hit copy. So now I have 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and scale this again, exactly the same way, 70%, and hit copy. So now I have 3 hearts here. And if I drag over it, you can see, although on my layer here, it's red. So we should probably change that to a different color to make it easier to see. Let's see if we can get, yep, there we go. If I double click on the layer, I can change it to a different color. The preview lines, those little lines, and then it's easier to see what's going on. So I'm going to just drag over down here till I select just the 2 biggest hearts. And then I'm going to go back to my pathfinder and I'm going to select the exclude, and that will cut out the medium-sized heart from the big heart. So now I've got my layered hearts, just like one of those valentines we used to make when we were kids. So now I'm going to go ahead and select all of these like this. And I'm going to, again, hold down my Option and Shift key to drag it down right here. And actually, I'm going to have to scroll down. So I'm just going to drag it over here and put it right here on top of the other one. And then I'm going to select the central heart and we're going to do a gradient. And so let's open up our gradient panel, which I don't see here. So I'm going to go here and select gradient. And here's the gradient panel. Now we've got 3 different kinds of gradients. Linear goes from just from side to side or top to bottom or whatever angle you choose from one color to the next. Radial starts with one color in the middle and then goes out. And then freeform gradient, you can do all kinds of fun things with. So I'm going to select the freeform gradient. And right now it says draw points or lines. You can either have it draw little lines between the points that control the gradient, or you can just use points. I'm going to say points. So now what that means is that we can drag any of these swatches that we've got, and if you want to prepare swatches, you can do that, onto these points. So going back to my gradients. So now I'm going to add another point, and I'm going to put another color on that point. And I'm going to add another point, and I'm going to put a different color on that point. Green? What are you thinking? Okay, purple. That's a little bit more acceptable. And then another point, and put another color in that point until I'm happy. And you can actually grab these and move these around however you want and make your heart whatever colors you like. Okay, now I want to just go ahead and group these. So I'm going to, you can do Command or Control G to group, or you can go up here in the object panel and group this one, which I've already grouped it, so it's grayed out, or ungroup. And that just makes it a little bit easier to select it and move it around. And I'm going to do the same Option Shift drag. And now I'm going to go ahead and so I've grabbed my pen tool. I'm going to create a color that I like, and it's going to be pink. And now I'm just going to go ahead and create my little doily. And that means clicking and then clicking and dragging. So I'm clicking at the edge of the heart. And then I'm clicking and dragging where the round part is, just to create a little tiny Bezier anchor point, a curve point. So the click creates a corner point, and the drag creates a handles. It creates a straight Bezier curve. Now, I could change that a little bit by using the anchor point tool to give it an angle, but we're not going to do that. That's advanced. So just see, I'm just dragging just a tiny bit to make a little tiny curve. And I'm not really worrying about whether it's perfect right now. And I could probably do this. Let's do this. That makes it a little easier to see now that we're getting over here. Just changing it over to a path. And on this last one, I'm going to make it like that. And now what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm trying to remember how I did this before. I'm going to go ahead and do this back to that. And I'm going to get my direct selection tool. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to fix it in ways that I want to fix it. So that means just going in and fiddling with these little curves to make them look a bit nicer. Maybe move this around. Now, I'm going to switch back over here so that I can see better. The other thing, though, that you can do if you have a fill and you don't want to change it to a stroke, but you want to be able to see what you're doing, you can go up to View and View Outline. And when you view the outline, it actually makes it super simple to match things up. So I'm going to just grab these little anchor points, twiggle them a little bit to make them better, and grab these other anchor points, the corner points, and put them on top of the other ones or close enough to them so that it looks pretty good. So I'm going to go around the whole thing. That one should be down here more probably. And fix them all. And you may say, well, this is very time consuming. But when you think about if you were drawing this by hand with a pencil or crayon or paintbrush, that would take a while too. But in this case, once we're done with this and we like it, we can just copy it. And as you can see, I'm not really attempting to make each one identical. I'm just, trying to make it look fairly good. This one, for example, is too fat. Now, one of the bad things about using this outline mode is it's actually kind of a little bit hard to tell which line is which. When you're fiddling with it, the line turns green, but when you're just looking at it without moving it around, both of the lines look the same. So, that's something to watch out for, just to see what's going on here. Can be a little bit confusing, but you can see I'm managing it. You could manage it. And you can always just go back to the preview mode and you'll be able to see the difference between the lines and the stroke very easily that way. All right. So I believe this looks pretty good. This one may be a little pointy, like that. So now I'm going to switch these swatches back like that to make it my fill. And I'm going to do the same exact thing that we did with the heart before. We're going to go over to our reflect tool, double click, and copy. I'm going to zoom out now a little bit. I'm just using my magnifying glass, and when you hit the Option key on your keyboard, it turns it into going out, zooming out with the minus instead of zooming in with the plus. So it's usually automatically the plus sign to zoom in, and then you hold down the Option key to zoom out. So now I'm just going to make sure I only have one of these selected. It should do that automatically, but I'm always extra careful about these things. And I'm going to drag this over to line it up. Just zoom in to make sure that there's no space in between them. Good. And now I'm going to hold down my Shift key to select the other one and back to the Pathfinder, and we'll hit that Unite option. Well, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to send this object to the back. So we're going to go over here, and you have the option of bring to front, bring forward, send backward, and send to back. Send to back is fine for this situation. So we're going to send it to the back, and now it's behind the other one. And we have our Valentine. So thank you so much for joining me with this tutorial, and I hope it's useful for you. And please let me know what you think.